I love when normie or like left Twitter finds out about shit that's happening on this platform. The guy that thought Romania was in the U.S. is now mimicking the man arrested for kidnapping and sex trafficking. Bleak and disturbing. Starting off 2020-23 right, says Aiden Ross, portraying himself as Andrew Tate here. This is something that's happening, apparently. This is a big part of the discourse. The reason young men flock to alt-right MRA movements is because the left gives brain-dead advice to young men. We need to be more compassionate to them for our own sake. I said Lamau because, like, apparently there's discourse happening about, like, male role models that seek out and try to educate, like, young men who are rudderless and lost. And I said Lamau because, like, yeah, motherfucker, what do you think I do? But, of course, there is a part of, like, left Twitter that, like, basically fucking considers me like a non-entity or a person that's, like, really bad. I might sound biased in saying this, but Hasan might be agreeing with this statement as he himself has given advice to young men. Yeah, I'm laughing because I do it. And I'm, like, literally the biggest fucking streamer on the left. So, like, that's why I'm laughing. Men don't fall down the alt-right MRA pipeline because the left isn't doing good enough outreach. They choose to subscribe to fascist ideology because they have an investment in maintaining their position in the social hierarchy, and the liberation of other groups threatens that. That is absolutely correct, by the way. Two things can be true at once. If you think the attractiveness of the manosphere and the right isn't connected to a deep investment in patriarchy and white supremacy, then you are unserious. Yup. It's a sense of feeling embarrassed by material conditions and a sense of nostalgia that you are desperately seeking, that you feel the manosphere gives you by building this systemic criticism that is false and telling you that, like, you yourself are not the problem. The system is broken and the system is actually at fault for your situation. It's escapist. It also does not offer good advice, but basically tries to reinforce, like, previously established constructs as a way for you to feel like a little bit of power, especially over your interlocutors as you own them. It's silly. It's stupid. Nah, most 14-year-olds don't care about that. They just want to own the libs. No, even when we talk about, like, 14-year-olds, you're failing to understand what I mean. When I talk about material conditions and how it impacts people, I'm talking about most people experience certain resentments, experience certain things, and then have a sense of resentment without actually adequately understanding where that resentment is coming from or where that anger should be directed. But you still experience it regardless. You know what I mean? The ignoring of this fact and the left isn't doing enough argument are hand in hand with a lack of self-reflection and accountability for the predominantly white male adherents of this ideology, and the inherent anti-black self-hating elements of the black manosphere. Jordan Peterson and Kevin Samuels works for a lot of these boys because they present a strong man authoritarian image. Even the most masculine leftist men are not going to offer the same product because authoritarianism is inherently conservative. I constantly have men in my comments say something along the lines of, I love your content and you have great ideas, but I just wish you were more misogynistic. Obviously, by the way, they're not saying that with those words, but that is an understandable thing to derive from that content. Those are also really easy points to latch on to. They're easy. They're stereotypes that exist for a reason, and you can just, like, very easily point to them and go, hey, isn't that funny? You know, women go to the kitchen, lol. And people who are dumb will also run with it because it's something that they've heard, and it feels a little, it feels a little dangerous to be able to, joke around about that, especially in an environment where you feel like you are suppressed. You can't say things like that when you, of course, can. And many people do. And not only that, but, like, there are basically systemic hurdles presented towards women that are almost identical to that, right? Like undermining civil liberties. Abortion rights is a great example of this. You know what I mean? Pink tax, shit like that. It's not a matter of effort. It's the fact that we live in a white supremacist patriarchy, and we have a lot of conservative centrists and even some so-called leftists who say they care about helping men and boys, but also want to somehow maintain these hierarchies. That's Jordan Peterson's great trick. He cares about men and boys, but he cares about patriarchy and white supremacy more, necessitating his constant attacks on critical theories that would dismantle those systems. That's why I can't get the average dude to agree with any and every major feminist tenet around gender and sex, as long as I don't call it. I can get the average dude to agree with every major feminist tenet, as long as I don't call it feminism, because then they're chip triggers and they turn into Sneeko or some shit. And yay, this is still algorithmically controlled and optimized, but that doesn't mean it's caused by algorithms, just exacerbated by it. Yep, that's true. When I was 14 and falling down the pipeline, misogynistic jokes were like comfort food. It comes from a place of being deeply rooted in a conservative past and refusing to let go or see other perspectives, refusing to have empathy. If you had an alt-right phase, you weren't just tricked or manipulated from nothing. You were actively racist and misogynistic because that's how you were taught. And just because you got deprogrammed by an H-bomb video doesn't mean that part of who you were just disappeared. I think that's something that a lot of people also recognize, or maybe not a lot of people recognize that, but that's why you see a lot of people sometimes in here that go like, oh man, like I love your content, but like sometimes I really see that like side of me creep in. You know what I mean? Like you hear it all the time in this chat. There's a lot of people who have actively changed their minds on issues, changed their attitudes on issues, all the way from misogyny to transphobia, and yet it still creeps in every now and then. Why? Because it is a social construct that is being blasted into your fucking face from every facet, from every corner. It's difficult to avoid. In fact, it's more accurate to say that you just had a patch update, your original factory design is still there, and you won't ever get rid of that original design. I don't fully agree with that. I think that you can. I think that's like a little bit too pessimistic. And this is just as true for me and my biases with misogyny and queerphobia as a product of my upbringing that are still in constant negotiation. But the difference is I can't and wouldn't blame this on the quartering or armored skeptic or Tommy Sotomayor or Too Short or Sugar Free. So if you went down these pathways, hold that out. That's what it means to be accountable. Then just don't look to me and others as an alternative. Unpack what you got there first place and decide from your own framework. I don't know if I fully agree with that. Because I think that you can change your mind on a lot of things and then like no longer have any remnants of your old self. But this is the main discourse now. The reason young men are flocking to the alt-right MRA shit is because it's popular, lucrative, and the perfect feedback loop for already held beliefs. Also, there's no compassion in that movement, only exploitation. On one hand, the general advice given is focus on yourself, young man, fix yourself, which isn't inherently bad advice, but since it's a reactionary movement, the focus is really on consumerism and unrealistic beauty standards. I agree. On the other hand, they tell these men the problem isn't within themselves at all. They are fine the way they are. It's the world that's sick and needs to be changed. But reactionaries don't seek the change system, so the output is violence against powerless individuals. This is also 100% something I agree with. But having said that, the world is more in a gray area. Like human existence is more in a gray area than black and white. Like it's not either all systems or all individuals. You can make individual changes within yourself that will also make you a more valuable person in society, that especially as it pertains to you making efforts in advocacy and structural change, systemic change. So that's why I do both structural analysis, but I also talk about like my experiences in the gym, my ups and downs, my failures and my wins, my losses, and how you have to put one foot in front of the other and keep going through it and build consistent good habits, things like that. He makes a good point. As a shy kid, I was really looking for advice on how to approach women, and I found the PUA community. If I didn't went into research showing flaws in what they had said and some tough advice from women around me, I'd be a red pillar now. He's not wrong. Yeah, I think that there's a bit of both, and there's space for both types of people, I think, on the left as well. But yes, if you simply say that like we don't have enough Andrew Tate style figures that exclusively focus on like dating advice and stuff like that we're going to be losing out to the right. But yeah, as far as advice goes, I think that we should not undermine the lived experience of people who are also victims of social conditioning, because ultimately, no matter how oppressive, no matter how like involved in uplifting or promoting it like a white supremacist worldview certain people might have, they didn't materialize out of nowhere, and they certainly did not materialize because they are evil people. It materialized as a consequence of their lived experiences, and most importantly, the social conditioning. It's just, if you recognize that basically that we live in a white supremacist, racist, misogynistic, patriarchal society, then yes, of course, people are going to have some of those beliefs, because those beliefs are being reinforced everywhere they go. They're being reinforced by their parents, who have also existed under similar structures, if not worse. So it is what it is, okay? It is what it is. So you have to remember that, and sometimes do have a more empathetic approach to those who are in that pipeline. Because I do think that this black or white understanding of like oppression, and most of the time it comes from marginalized people themselves for understandable reasons. Because like, yeah, if you're a black person, yeah, I understand why you have no time to empathize with a white supremacist. And I do not expect a black person to do that. You have been a victim to it your entire fucking life. Having said that though, I do think that, people like myself, try to use that privilege, you know, that lack of additional marginalization in their lives, and also the additional privilege of like having white people listen to me without immediately having their guard up because I am not black. I try to use that for good. I don't know what this is, but here, let's take a look.
It only takes one thing to get you into the alt-right pipeline, and most people are in denial that they're within that pipeline. Motivational quotes like the one I just stitched, alt-right pipeline. Half of gym TikTok.
Dude, I see a lot of TikToks nowadays that are like that, by the way. Like I've been seeing like a crazy amount of TikToks like that. I love that like TikTok was like, "Oh, we're combating misogyny by taking down Andrew Tate," but then like TikTok is still a fucking hellhole infested with incredibly reactionary TikToks, like all over.
TikTok, and half of Jim Bro TikTok is alt-right pipeline. Men who watch Jordan Peterson because they got their feelings hurt and nobody cares about men, so Jordan Peterson appeals to their emotions. That's how the alt-right pipeline gets you. Same thing with radical feminists who become TERFs. That's how the alt-right pipeline gets you. That's how the shade room gets you. They post your favorite celebrities saying controversial things, and then you start to agree with them. You start to be anti-gay. You start to be anti-trans. And, you know, I will say that a lot of the black community is already...
The thing is, like, you're already there. You're already there, and they're just reinforcing it. Because, like, it's hard. It's infinitely harder and unironically escaping the matrix when you literally go against the pre-established hierarchies like that.
They post your favorite celebrities saying controversial things, and then you start to agree with them. You start to be anti-gay. You start to be anti-trans. And, you know, I will say that a lot of the black community is already homophobic and anti-trans anyways, but, like, that's a separate story. But anyways, like, there's just so many avenues from...
Also, it should be reactions in Crowder and Shapiro and then Tucker Carlson. Thank God I turned away from that. I love the fact that I got out of the alt-right pipeline, can now see it everywhere. Most white people are anti-gay. Why didn't you say that? I agree. It's true. But anyway, I don't think it's like... The thing that frustrates me about like, oh, the black community is anti-gay, it's like, yeah, every community is anti-gay. Everyone, okay? Every community is homophobic. Every community is transphobic. Not just like the black community, right? It's no different. That's why it's always strange when people like single out the black community to be like, yo, they're so anti-gay or they're so anti-trans. I'm like, what? Okay. And it's this like weird take. It is weird. It's a weird take because like it's true, but if you single it out, it comes across odd because like white is the default position. And even if you're a black person saying that, you're still, depending on the context of the situation, even if you're a black person saying that, you're still falling into that like weird white supremacist attitude that like white is the fucking default position. So you can separate some white people as anti-gay, and you don't just immediately think all white people are anti-gay or a big chunk of white people are anti-gay. Like you never think about it like that. And that again still comes from white supremacy. Like that is a white supremacist construct. Yeah, of course there is a fuckload of homophobic, transphobic shit that happens in the black community. Guess what? It happens also in the white community as well to the same fucking degree. But because white people are considered the default, you automatically have this like way of, whether you realize it or not, you automatically have a way of saying, oh, those are Trump supporters. That's different. Those are different kind of whites. You know what I mean? But you don't have that same way. You don't have that same way of parsing through it when it comes to like the black community. Anyway, that part of the discourse, as far as like, people on Twitter talking about like how you need a leftist advice guy or whatever who doesn't just exclusively talk about theory or anything like that. My take on it is I'm right here, man.